Paulo Costa is the heavily rumored matchup for Khamzat Chimaev at the 185-pound weight division after Khamzat Chimaev missed weight by around 7 or 8 pounds. And now Paulo Costa is now very much heavily rumored and actually came out and said that he agreed with money and fights and all that stuff. They're still structuring the contract, but it is pretty much close to being done, or if not done already, that he has signed and re-signed a 4-fight deal with the UFC. So this matchup is being heavily rumored right now. This is the matchup the UFC wants to make. So I'm going to be doing an early prediction and breakdown for this matchup. So let's get right into the video. We have Paulo Costa versus Khamzat Chimaev. Paulo Costa 14-2, Khamzat Chimaev 12-0. Paulo Costa will be 3 years older. Khamzat Chimaev is 1 inch taller. Of course, this is at the 185-pound weight division. Khamzat Chimaev will have a 3-inch reach advantage and will have a half-inch reach advantage in this matchup. Paulo Costa, last couple fights against Luke Rockhold at Salt Lake City at UFC 278. That fight was at altitude, so I don't want to hold it too much against Paulo Costa, but he gassed out really early. He probably should have finished Luke Rockhold, but again, altitude affected everybody on that card for main event, pretty much top to bottom, except for if you actually trained at altitude like Kamaru Usman, but affected pretty much everybody negatively. So I won't hold it too much against them. Previously, before that, we had a Marvin Vettori matchup where there was a whole thing with Paulo Costa where he apparently wasn't going to make weight. Marvin Vettori, of course, being Marvin Vettori, was like, okay, we'll go at any weight class and doing whatever. But Paulo Costa showed up with his antics that week, and it was supposed to be made at like 195 or 205, and then it got moved to 210 and then 215. So whatever happened there, Paulo Costa couldn't make the weight or didn't even try to make weight, but there's a whole bunch of antics there. Before then, he had the whole wine situation with Israel Adesanya, and he did get KO'd in that second round. So a bunch of weird stuff with Paulo Costa recently, at least within the last few years, or a couple of years actually. So for Khamzat Chimaev, his last bout was against Kevin Holland. It was supposed to be against Nate Diaz in the main event for UFC 279. Didn't end up happening because he did miss weight by like 7 or 8 pounds. Of course, there are some, I wouldn't say conspiracies, but there are some stuff going around where the doctors told him that he needs to rehydrate because he's like in a very bad spot. His coach said he's vomiting. So it's all over the place. I think obviously his coaches or the people around him don't think he's going to be able to make 170 healthy at all anymore. So I think they're going to take a break. Obviously, I think he's still going to go down to try and get that belt if he does get the 185-pound belt. But I think his coaches and the UFC want him at 185. They don't want him messing with any other cards. And because of that big weight miss, he is now fighting a contender, likely up a division for a title spot instead of actually fighting for the title at 170. So very interesting situation there, but he did end up fighting Kevin Holland, ragdolled him on the ground. Kevin Holland kind of put up a fight for a couple minutes, but pretty much happened however it normally happens with the Khamzat Chimaev fight against Gilbert Burns. He went through a big giant war there. Very entertaining fight. Kind of was a little bit less disciplined in there. I think if he probably could have stayed on the ground, he might have been able to get it done a little bit earlier, but he did stay away from Gilbert Burns' jiu-jitsu. Had a war with Gilbert Burns in that fight. Won that fight by 29-28 decision, but it was super close. And then beat Li Jingliang by absolute domination. Picked him up, kind of embarrassed him, brought him over to the boss, slammed him on the ground, and choked him out. So it was very rough to watch. But for this matchup, again, Khamzat Chimaev is moving to the 185-pound division. Obviously, this is a new division against a big guy like Paulo Costa, but Khamzat Chimaev has been at the 185-pound division before. He did KO Gerald Meerschaert in, 2020? Pretty early in that fight. It was a very interesting fight in general. He just put him out cold with one punch and then beat John Phillips by a Darce choke in the UFC. So he's had 2 fights at the 185-pound division, so he is moving up. But the interesting part of this is Paulo Costa is sizably bigger than Khamzat Chimaev for this matchup. So a lot of the things that he was using at 170, where he's going to be able to pick up some of these guys that are a little bit lighter, that aren't cutting as much weight, is not going to be as much of a factor here. He's going to have to use a little bit more of the technical side of his wrestling and get the guys down, or rely on his striking a little bit more. So I think that's why this fight is a little bit more interesting. Also, Paulo Costa has really good takedown defense, really strong dude, really strong base. On the ground, you've seen him like just throw guys off of him that are just really big. It's not like a Derek Lewis where he just gets up, but he's like tossing guys around. He's very strong. He has a really good base for takedown defending. But again, Khamzat unstoppable at 170. And Khamzat has shown good power. Like I said, Gerald Marchart put him out in one go. Even in the Gilbert Burns fight, dropped him multiple times. But these, again, are 170 pounders. 185 pounder, he did put him out very early, but I think this is going to be a really big test. We're going to see if he sinks or swims. I think he'll go. I don't know if there's a sink with Khamzat Chimaev, but we'll see. With a guy that's bigger, with a guy with a lot of skills at 185, we'll see how Khamzat Chimaev does in this matchup. But I am going to go with Khamzat Chimaev. I think this is going to be a 3-rounder, is my guess. I'm not sure if they're going to make it a 5-rounder. Maybe you do that. Put it on like a Fight Night main event or a co-main event at some point. And you do make it a 5-rounder. But I think a 3-rounder would probably makes a little bit more sense. But I think I'm probably going to do both here. But for this matchup, I have Khamzat Chimaev winning, but I think it's going to be a very close decision, like 29-28. I think he's going to be able to I think he's going to try and wrestle Paulo Costa, get it close, at least try and clinch, try to tip him over a little bit. But I think it's not going to work too well. If he does tip him over, I think Paulo Costa probably gets to a knee and then gets back up. But I think it's going to be very close. I think we'll see Khamzat Chimaev kind of settle in on the feet a little bit more, be a little bit more the technical side there. And I think Paulo Costa does outstrike him in at least one of the rounds. So I think it does go 29-28. Probably first round, Khamzat Chimaev pressures a little bit, tries to go for that takedown, pushes him against the fence. Again, tries to get him that takedown, tries to pick him up. Paulo Costa does a good job defending. I think they kind of settle in on the feet a little bit. It's going to be kind of like an even round, but maybe like the control and the wrestling will edge towards Khamzat Chimaev. I think in the second round, Khamzat Chimaev is going to get real comfortable on the feet. And I think Paulo Costa is probably going to outstrike him in that round. And in the third round, I think Khamzat Chimaev, knowing that he needs to get it done and get the decision, I think he's going to pressure a little bit more, do a little bit more on the feet, use some more of those clinch scenarios, trying to get him down to the ground, home against the fence, do whatever he needs to do to get the win. And I think he does win by decision. I think this is a 3-round fight. They are bigger dudes, especially after seeing Paulo Costa's last fight. And generally at 170, we don't know the cardio of Khamzat Chimaev. You saw in the Gilbert Burns fight, although it was very high output, a lot of people put the strike and the tag on Khamzat Chimaev that his cardio is in question here. So very interesting fight. Let me know who you guys think will win in the comments below. I think Khamzat Chimaev, I think he is developing well on the feet. He is 20 years old, so he is the younger fighter here. Paulo Costa is still 31, so he is still making improvements also, but Khamzat Chimaev is likely making improvements as well. It seems like they're both always training, so this is a very interesting fight. I think this fight is very promotable too. Put it on a pay-per-view card, co-main event. Maybe you have it as his own standalone main event on like a Fight Night card in person. So, but I think this fight probably draws money. So, and they want the press conference. Put it on a pay-per-view card. Co-main event, maybe you do make it 5 rounds. 5 rounds, I think we still see Khamzat Chimaev do a little bit better than I say 170 pound. I think he mixes in a little bit well. But I think obviously maybe Khamzat Chimaev does have some insane power and can KO Paulo Costa or something, but I do think Khamzat Chimaev wins by decision. So again, let me know who you guys think wins down below in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time.